So the thing to do, we need to bring the power back. And the first thing that I would advise is, well, the understanding that where we put our attention is where the power begins to magnify. So once that happens, our attention is going to be on all the other people. We're going to be freaking out in one way or another, feeling humiliated, feeling frustrated, feeling freaking angry, all tied up in one panic of freeze moment. You know what I'm talking about,
I
right?
do. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so what we're doing is we're putting all our focus outside of ourselves, which makes it worse. We're then magnifying their power and losing more and more of our own. So it's going
Yeah.
like that.
So, yeah.
So the first thing to do is to bring the power back to you by bringing the focus back to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Suzanne Paul. Slight technical hitch, so apologies for being 5 minutes late, but I'm here again this week with Dr. Anne Whitehouse. I know how much you enjoyed hearing from her last week, so we brought her back for a double whammy. So Anne, tell us, what are we learning about today?
Right, today we are talking about women speaking up. So this is an absolute Achilles heel situation for many women. If we have got that sorted in our lives, if we can hold power in those particular key moments and speak up with authority and with holding our power, we've got it made, and that is in personal life and professional life. If we can't do that, it's just a slippery slope, right? It absolutely, we get into if it's personal life, we end up in a pattern of not speaking up, not expressing ourselves. If it's professional, we'd end up getting interrupted, talked over, dismissed, asked to make the tea or take the minutes when we should be giving the presentation. It's the key moments where we have to hold our power. And the reason I bring it up is because it's incredibly difficult to hold our power in those moments, because it triggers something that's very deep in every woman I've worked with. And that includes women who feel positive about their empowerment and very confident. I got a woman that I know professionally, no, not a client, someone I know, very, very powerful, competent woman. And there she was telling me about a meeting. She was there with some other clients, and these other people, they were all men in this instance, they start to talk over her and the other woman there. And once that happens, it's almost impossible to get the ball back, because the power's been taken away, and it triggers something very deep in our subconscious minds that tells us, you're not allowed to have the power in this situation. You are the subservient position. So this is what I want to talk about. That's the key. If we can crack that, those Achilles heel moments of speaking up powerfully, and I don't mean just like, projecting, but holding the power energetically, keeping the focus, keeping the attention, that's the way to not only move forward in the big picture in our careers, but it's also the way to get that energy of credibility and authority, and it counteracts the unconscious bias.
Wow, amazing. So just thinking back to my career in the past, I remember times where I was sitting in meetings with a bunch of men, and I mean, one of them even called me love in a meeting where I was acting as a lawyer, which I thought was incredibly patronizing, and I told him.
Yeah, I've had the same thing.
Yeah. And so I totally resonate with this, and in fact, what I can particularly hear is in my message about how important it is to get your sexy back. One of the things that is owning the power and claiming the power. So why don't you tell us more about that, and also like how we can do it, like what difference it makes, and what's a tip that you would have us practice? How about that?
There's about 4 things to answer in that.
Okay, well, take your time. We've got time.
So the first thing is understanding what's happening, because when we're in that situation and suddenly you find I can't speak up, or you've been interrupted, and somehow you just shut down and you don't understand why. We're back to this old operating system, all that subconscious programming that we aren't consciously aware of, but it's sitting under the surface like an old poison coming up from the 19th century. And so in that scenario, say it's one, you know, one woman, like exactly like you said, one woman at a meeting, you're there in authority in your professional capacity, and the men around the table. On the surface, you're meant to be all equals. Get underneath it, and the subconscious operating system will say to the man, right, we are the men of authority. That's the secretary. That's the tea lady. That's the cleaner. That's how we are, right? Whereas if you look at us, we think we're there in our professional capacity, but our subconscious will say, I'm doing something forbidden. I'm on trial for my life, and these are the judges.
Oh, so we're coming back to the old witchy thing.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
So
right. Okay, carry on.
It's again and again and again. So when we're in that, they will automatically automatically look down on us and give the authority somewhere else. They won't look at us. They'll just avoid because we're not really there. Whereas our minds will go into a fight or flight. This is really dangerous. Then there'll be what I call a trigger moment. So that's, for example, just like you said, somebody makes a sexist comment, or somebody dismisses what you've said, or puts it down, or that's rubbish, love, or whatever, or asks you to do a menial task that is not your job, your position, and immediately your subconscious will say, "Oh my God, it's correct. I shouldn't be here. It is forbidden," and it goes the spiral. And once goes down, you're sunk. You can't get that back. And I've been there, locked, being unable to do anything, hating the fact that I can't do it. And this is one of the situations I talk about in my book as the worst experience of my life, where I was actually giving a presentation and this started happening. And I was unable to say, "Excuse me, do you mind if I just finish the presentation?" I couldn't open my mouth, and I literally stood at the overhead projector. It was the 90s for an hour, over an hour. And eventually I just sat down, and it was the most humiliating thing ever. And I was the invited expert, and they treated me like that. But they didn't notice because they were just on some kind of autopilot. They just didn't notice. So what can we do about it? And this is the key. This is when, the conventional empowerment advice is not going to help, because we've lost our power. It's gone away as if the floor's been taken out from underneath us. And we're there spiraling into a panic, right? So the thing to do, we need to bring the power back. And the first thing that I would advise is, the understanding that where we put our attention is where the power begins to magnify. So once that happens, our attention is going to be on all the other people. We're going to be freaking out in one way or another, feeling humiliated, feeling frustrated, feeling freaking angry, all tied up in one panic of freeze moment. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
Yeah. And so what we're doing is we're putting all our focus outside of ourselves, which makes it worse. We're then magnifying their power and losing more and more of our own. So it's going like that.
So
the first thing to do is to bring the power back to you by bringing the focus back to you.
Okay. So I like this. So I can hear there's a saying that we have in the NLP world, and I'm not really in the NLP world, but I've got that in my toolbox, and it's like where focus goes, energy flows. So it's like bringing focus. Okay, carry on. And
it's more than energy, it's power. So speaking as a former engineer, those are different things, right?
Okay. Oh, scientific.
But yeah.
Okay. Oh, carry on. Sorry. Yeah, keep going.
So this is where I advise you to do my pulling back the power. And that's you just literally imagine this ball that is the power. And it's on a wire, and you literally pull it back. Obviously, you can't do it with your hands if you're in a meeting, but you can do it with your mind's eye. And it's resistant because you've got to unlock that fight or flight. But when you pull, there's a really pulling feeling, and pull the ball back to yourself, and you hold the focus within yourself. And what I say is, imagine this ball actually in your chest, and it's brightly coloured and flashing lights or whatever. And put your focus on that. and your mind will say, oh, what color is it? And it'll just completely detach from everything that's going on. As soon as you do that, you begin to shrink down their power and you begin to grow your own. Now, this is the key thing. As soon as your power begins to come back, your subconscious mind begins to feel safer, because power equals safety. So as soon as you feel that safety, the stress, the panic is going to begin to calm down. And that's when your mind begins to say, oh, hang on a minute. It's not 1485, this is the 21st century. I'm entitled. They're being rude. I have a perfect right to be taken as an equal in this situation. So the stress goes down, the confidence just goes up, and it's literally an energy balance.
Mm-hmm.
And then all these programs that triggered and told you weren't safe begin to dissolve away, and you'll feel that power dynamic shift. And when you do that, the astonishing thing is, not only do you feel better, but then people treat you differently. So this is the first step of all of my process, which goes into the whole reprogramming of all of this stuff. But just doing that, like I've explained it today, can completely shift a balance, and will get things onto out of that negative spiral, and where the power is actually being held much better in your life. So those key situations of speaking up, if you can't do it, if you're feeling the anxiety or you just can't say anything, that is because you've lost the power, your mind has gone into fight or flight, you've shut down, and they've just taken the ball away. They've taken that power away. This is the key. If you address those key situations and shift those, then everything else can come back into balance, and you can begin to move forward in a powerful way.
Yeah, well, amazing, Anne. And so what I can hear about that, so this really resonates with the message that I speak about in terms of discipline and holding your discipline, and like maintaining consistency for yourself, but also like bringing the attention back to ourselves, because as women it's so easy for us to give it all out here, and especially when we've gone into the kind of that fight or flight mechanism that you've talked about, in terms of like being confronted by something or feeling uncomfortable in a meeting environment. It's so easy to like start to put the attention on or over there on others, because that's what we instinctively do. But actually bringing it back to ourselves and taking a breath, grounding ourselves, getting present, and really rooting yourself. It's almost like it feels like it's in the root chakra. Is that kind of, I don't, or solar plexus?
Well, for when I've analysed it, the key point is actually the heart.
Okay, interesting.
So when I'm teaching this, as in step one, we do it to the heart. When we get into the advanced stuff, we do it on all the energy centers, and we anchor ourselves up and down before the meetings. That's the more detailed, complex thing, where we're really wanting to just change the whole power dynamic of our life. We do it that way. If you've got what I call, an Achilles heel first aid situation, where you need a quick fix because it's all going downhill, it's all going pear-shaped in this meeting, then pull it back to the chest.
Okay.
The heart center,
I've not heard that before.
Is the center of that torus-shaped electromagnetic field, which is the most powerful energy center that we've got in the body. And I do a lot of work with teaching people how to use that energy center to shift their power and the energy that they're putting out. So if you focus on that one first, you're going to be immediately shifting the energy that other people are perceiving from you. All the others, it's so important, don't get me wrong, totally important, but I'd say start with the heart.
Okay, fascinating. Wow. And with that, we have 2 minutes to go. So we're just going to say that we will be back on Friday for the final interview in this series with with Anne Whitehouse, but she will be back, don't worry. And in the comments below, you can find out more about Anne in her Facebook group, Secret Sorceress, and I'm going to put a link in the comments below. And I don't know if you noticed, but she did very casually mention her book, and I'm going to put a link to Amazon for her book as well, everybody, so you can find out much more about Anne and talk to Anne directly. by joining her Secret Sorceress Facebook group, which I will put a link in, as I said, and go out and buy her book on Amazon. And while you're about it, there's a book on there called Discipline. Not sure who it's by. Oh yeah, that's right, it's by me. You can find it on Amazon too. So why not do a little bit of a 2-for-1? And as I said, Anne and I will be back on Friday for the final drop in this round of interviews with Anne, Friday at 11:30. We'll see you then. Have a good week, everyone. Bye.